Meanwhile, on the other end of the call, after the call ended, Snowy's entire body relaxed as she let out a long sigh of relief. She paced back and forth in the room, still wearing her military uniform, however. Her face was slightly red. On her large screen, the background was set to a photo of Lu Sheng at the martial arts tournament. She stopped and stared at it for a moment, deep in thought. Suddenly, without knocking, Qin burst into her room, loudly asking if everything was all set. Snowy tried to keep her voice steady as she nodded and said, "Tonight at 8, Blue Dove Restaurant." Qin laughed heartily, then rushed to Snowy's side with a teasing expression, calling her the hot teacher that all the students dreamed of. He joked that he had noticed how she looked at Lu Sheng differently for a while, and wondered if she was happy now. Snowy slowly turned her head, and then kicked him out of the room, causing him to slam into the hallway. She then reached out to touch her pendant, whispering to herself, "Central Army District's Emperor, Transcendent Martial Saint's top disciple." Those were her two older brothers. She clenched her fist and made up her mind. She must advance to 7th level Grandmaster as soon as possible. Back at Lu Sheng's place, the sun was still shining brightly outside when he received a message on his phone. It was around 3 in the afternoon. The butler had messaged to inform him that the level 7 beast marrow had arrived and was placed in the second-floor hall, along with a tube of level 8 beast marrow. However, he advised Lu Sheng to use it carefully. Lu Sheng was a bit surprised, not expecting it to be delivered within just over an hour. With less than 5 hours until dinner, he thought he could still train for a while. He quickly made his way to the hall, where several large containers of liquid were neatly placed on the floor. The one at the back, in a special container, must be the level 8 beast marrow. Even from afar, he could still feel the violent energy inside. However, this kind of thing definitely isn't meant to be ingested directly. Most martial artists would opt for external applications, but our boy didn't care about any of that. He opened a container, felt the energy inside, and then started drinking it. This forbidden Mountain Dew provided over 10 times the energy of level 6 beast marrow, but tasted really awful. After feeling it out for a moment, he moved on to the second container, then the third. In no time, he had consumed all the level 7 beast marrow. Wiping his mouth, he didn't notice anything special at first. Then suddenly, his whole body trembled as the terrifying energy within surged through him. He could feel the residual will of the beasts. A powerful negative energy, or perhaps better called the negative factor, began invading his body as if trying to tear him apart and take over. Taking a deep breath, Lu Sheng closed his eyes. His strong psychic power easily took control. The core in his body quickly replenished and began to expand. Once it reached a certain size, Lu Sheng abruptly halted the energy transmission and crushed the core within him. A more intense surge of blood energy than the first time he shattered his core burst forth, colliding chaotically inside him. Lu Sheng then began to practice the divine Pluto technique, and minutes later, the second immortal cell started to form, this time near his brow. After over 1 billion cycles of rebirth and transformation, he could clearly perceive that he had made significant progress in the third stage of the immortal golden body technique, but he estimated that he needed to do this 2 more times to complete it. With each surge of blood energy, his body grew stronger, similar to a breaking and rebuilding process, but much safer and more stable. However, he also noticed that the first immortal cell he already had absorbed some energy during this process. After undergoing several more million transformations, he was a bit surprised, but also confirmed the immense potential of the immortal cells. He wondered just how far they could ultimately grow. Suddenly, his hand started to deform as if a powerful force was trying to escape. He could sense it was the residual will of the beasts. Clearly, he hadn't fully purified the beast's marrow and removed all the negative factors. He quickly suppressed it, purifying the last bit. However, he realized that consuming all the level 7 beast marrow resulted in only a small amount of the negative factor. It wasn't much of a challenge, nor was there anything to worry about. With a glance at the level 8 beast marrow sitting in the back, he noted he still had plenty of time. Then he reached for the level 8 beast marrow. Feeling the energy inside, he noticed it was red this time. He drank it all in one go, a small amount trickling from the corner of his mouth. This forbidden cranberry juice contained more energy in one tube than all the level 7 beast marrow combined. In the next seconds, a swarm of negative factors rushed in. The container slipped from his hand, and his blood vessels began to expand. This feeling, he muttered slowly. Looking ahead, a powerful energy formed an evil version of himself, sporting long horns and a sinister grin. The immense pain made him drop to one knee. The intense pressure left him gasping for breath, barely able to bear it. He gritted his teeth and then let out a low growl, his eyes turning a strange color. Terrifying energy overflowed from his body, distorting the air around him. The energy coalesced into an evil doppelganger, hands in its pockets, looking down mockingly at him. "You can't handle this power. We are one. Just accept me," it said with a sinister smile. Lu Sheng gritted his teeth, suddenly lifted his head, and with a wave of his hand, dispersed the energy. "Get lost!" he shouted. Downstairs, the butler and maids looked up in shock as small debris started falling from the ceiling. Soon, the entire house began to shake. The butler was astonished. This building was supposed to withstand a level 16 earthquake. What on earth was happening upstairs? Meanwhile, Lu Sheng was still trying to control the overwhelming power. The energy kept pouring out, trying to tear him apart, causing his body to swell, his muscles bulging. He knew his body would tear apart if this continued. Quickly, he began using the nature's breathing technique. Instantly, he entered an empty state. At the brink of life and death, Lu Sheng entered this mysterious state once more. The pain vanished as if a giant hand gathered all the overflowing energy back. Accompanied by a beam of light, Lu Sheng returned to normal. His body began to recover slowly, and everything calmed down. He opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face as he had successfully fused his third immortal cell, destruction before creation, breaking to rebuild. Lu Sheng had finally perfected the third stage of his immortal golden body. When he looked at the clock on the wall, it was almost midnight. He had completely lost track of time. Panicking, Lu Sheng grabbed his phone and saw numerous missed calls. He quickly called Snowy. After a few rings, Snowy's usual calm but slightly cold voice answered. Feeling both awkward and nervous, Lu Sheng started with an apology, and was about to explain when Snowy cut him off, saying she knew it must be due to his training. She didn't say much more, asked if he had anything else to add, and then mentioned she needed to train as well before hanging up. Holding the phone, Lu Sheng was left wondering. She didn't seem angry, but then again, she might have been. Just as he began to ponder, Qin also called. "Lu Sheng, you big buffoon, you're in big trouble!" Qin yelled as soon as the call connected. Before Lu Sheng could respond, Qin continued, telling him that this was the first time in Snowy's life she had asked a man out for dinner, and Lu Sheng had stood her up. Lu Sheng couldn't help but start explaining that he had been on the verge of a breakthrough in his training and lost track of time. Qin was silent for a moment, and then calmed down a bit, remarking on how Lu Sheng seemed to have a breakthrough every other day. While the timing was truly unfortunate, it was understandable. Lu Sheng, being the ever-dense guy, told Qin that such things were beyond his control and that he was only 3 hours late. It shouldn't be that serious, right? However, this time, Qin was silent for a long time. Just as Lu Sheng thought their call had disconnected, suddenly, Qin's voice broke the silence. "Lu Sheng, you're a dense and unbelievable buffoon. I give up," then angrily hung up. Lu Sheng stared at his phone, wondering if it was really that bad. After thinking it over, he decided to sit on the floor and enter his dream realm to check for himself. Soon, he began checking his personal profile. He breathed a sigh of relief. Nothing much had changed, and Snowy was still listed under the spouse section. See, being 3 hours late isn't such a big deal. He shrugged and muttered to himself. With that settled, he felt completely at ease. Since he didn't have to go out for dinner, he decided to continue training. Perfecting the third stage of his immortal golden body technique had taken much less time than the second stage. Mixing with all the recent battles he had, these battle experiences were equally valuable. This breakthrough made him significantly stronger both inside and out. He pondered for a moment, thinking it might have something to do with the compatibility of his techniques, just like how some people are naturally suited for fist techniques with their unusually large joints, or for sword practitioners with their long arms. Perhaps Lu Sheng was naturally suited for body refinement techniques. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that even if Lu Sheng mastered the immortal stellar technique to the same level as Wang He, the man who created the technique, he doubted he would reach the same heights in comparison. But things were different now. Lu Sheng's martial body had been reshaped, and with the help of nature's breathing technique, it had become perfectly tailored for the immortal stellar technique. He could perfectly control various elements and martial wills, achieving nearly 100% compatibility. He might even surpass the technique's creator, the legendary Wang He. He decided to name his new martial body the Immortal Stellar Body. Now, just like the protagonists in other novels with their mighty holy bodies and dominator bodies, he now had the strongest physique in the universe. Of course, he was joking, but is he? Nonetheless, this was the strongest he had ever felt. After some time, he then walked onto the street. He took a deep breath before using his techniques, and his body slowly powered up. A powerful force began to radiate from him, and a golden light that could be seen from miles away, accompanied by the roars of mighty dragons, the image of a golden dragon spreading out. Lu Sheng mused that now, even the top great grandmasters wouldn't be able to break his defense. Lu Sheng was excited to test his current strength. Now here's the question, just how powerful is he? If he goes full out, what would be his combat power? He estimated it would double what it used to be. Either way, the only way to find out is if he puts himself to the test. He walked slowly into the depths of the dilapidated streets, moving into the more central area. Soon, he spotted a figure standing between several tall buildings. It was the martial saint of the Xuanyuan sword style. The man wore ancient-style armor and a tattered cloak, and held a long sword. His face was withered and dried out, standing there like a statue. Lu Sheng walked forward with confidence and battle spirit, lifting his leg, and kicked out fiercely, almost turning himself into a meteor crashing towards the man. The man then lifted his head, raised one of his hands, and sent a sword strike towards Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng's pupils narrowed as the buildings between them were instantly sliced into pieces. The two forces collided, and just seconds after impact, Lu Sheng was sent flying, tearing through buildings as he went. His body penetrated several structures before he finally landed on his feet, carving a long trench in the street. Kneeling on one knee, Lu Sheng realized that the strike he had just faced was merely a casual one from the martial saint. As powerful as it seemed, it wasn't enough to fully penetrate his defense, only leaving a small cut on his forearm, but the wound quickly healed. Lu Sheng grinned, thinking to himself, there's only one chance. If the martial saint can't kill him with a single strike, then it's his turn to be killed. In the next second, golden light radiated from his body. 3 immortal cells began spinning, and the 4 grandmasters' wills surged. With the nature-breathing technique fully activated, Lu Sheng transformed into his martial god state and activated his perfect martial will. In the distance, the martial saint remained expressionless, his hollow eyes gazing indifferently at Lu Sheng. He placed a hand on the hilt of his sword, his lips moving without sound, but Lu Sheng could almost feel him saying, "All these flashy tricks, I'll cut them all with one strike." He smirked and was ready to get serious. Seconds later, right after getting into his martial god state, he charged at the martial saint. Countless images of Lu Sheng appeared behind him. In response, the martial saint expression changed as he drew his long sword, and a powerful purple energy wave surged toward Lu Sheng. All of Lu Sheng's energy converged into his fist. Shatter the void! The two forces collided, instantly obliterating everything in their path. The resulting shockwave spread outwards, destroying all nearby buildings to dust.